Happy Friday, guys. I don't know about you, but it's felt like a really long week. So some of you might relate to this meme. All right, I'm going to keep today's video really short. I'm just going to go over those instructions posted on Google Classroom with a little bit more detail. If you're one of those people where you like an example before you submit your assignment, I'm going to have a separate video that's going to show you the rubric in more detail and specific examples. All right, your learning target for the day is all about describing current events. By the end of the day, you should be able to describe how that current event affects your own life or the lives of others. To get to your current events, you're going to listen to a podcast called All Things Considered. This is an NPR news podcast, and the reason why we're using this one is because it's one of the more unbiased news sources that we have available. So you can go ahead and choose any one of those current events listed from that website. So if you scroll down on your Google Classroom, there's going to be a link called All Things Considered NPR. That'll take you to a website that looks something like this. So you guys can go ahead and just scroll through and look for any one that you find interesting. Most of these podcasts range anywhere from like 3 minutes to 6 minutes. They're nice and short. So let's say I think this first one sounds really interesting. What are the costs of climate change? Go ahead and just click this listen button and you can go ahead and start listening to that podcast or that news story. Let's say you're somebody where you would rather read instead of listen to that news story. Go ahead and click on this button over here that looks like a bunch of lines stacked on top of each other, and that'll take you to the transcript or the actual news story. All right. Once you've finished listening to your news story, go back to Google Classroom. You can go ahead and start filling out your news reflection. So your reflection, you're going to put your first and last name, so that way you're getting points. Put the name of the story and the source. So mine was the cost of climate change. For the sources for all of these, it's just going to be NPR. All right, and then your reflection is going to be about how that story affects you personally, affects maybe your family, or affects the lives of others, including as big as like all Americans or all people in the world. You're just kind of talking more in depth about why that news story is important. If that part's confusing for you, double check the rubric and double check the examples, especially in the other video. Before you submit, it's a really good idea to double check that rubric so that way you have everything you need to be successful. So when you go back to Google Classroom, click on this document that says News Reflection Rubric and Examples. It'll look something like this. Okay. And it'll have the rubric. It's going to be out of 5 points. Everything you need in your assignment to get full points, and then some good examples and one bad example. So that should help you out. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask. I did set up this Google form to be resubmittable. So let's say that you submit it and you're like, oh, actually, I kind of want to change something or add to it. You can go ahead and open up that news reflection again and resubmit it, and I will get your edits. If you have any questions, make sure you email or text, and have a great weekend.